This morning, we have a new episode of our STEM City franchise. Dr. Owais Durrani is joining me live to talk about the science behind spacesuits.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, so, when we think about Houston, we think of Space City and we automatically think of
That's
NASA.
my favorite association with Houston, yeah.
Exactly, and just like everything, space is a team sport. So ILC Dover is the company that kind of makes those iconic white spacesuits. So what you saw on the moon, what you see during spacewalks, they make those.
What my kids dressed up as for Halloween.
Exactly.
Because that's what everybody associates with an astronaut.
Exactly. And so we went to their facility here in Houston where they design and make these suits. We met with two amazing engineers who kind of walked us through all of that, and it was a really fun and amazing experience.
Yeah, you said it was down by Nassau Bay?
Exactly, yeah. It was like this office building, and you show up and you're like, am I in the right place? And then you go in and there's all this cool tech, and it's literally where they sew them, where they talk about them, and do astronauts go there. So it's a really cool building, but from the outside, it's like very normal looking.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's learn more about it in the package.
Houston is Space City, and a few months ago we got to chat with the Artemis astronauts at NASA. But Space City is so much more than NASA. There's so many amazing organizations that allow Space City to do the things that we do. And today we're at ILC Dover, the guys that make these suits. We're going to chat with some engineers that make these suits and explore what they do on a day-to-day basis. Eric, thanks so much for joining us on STEM City. We're here at ILC Dover. We've got a cool suit behind us. Tell me about who you are and what you do.
So I'm Eric Vallis. I'm from Waco, Texas, and I went to school at UT Austin, and I studied mechanical engineering and minored in astronomy and got a business certificate. So as typical with mechanical engineers, I couldn't decide, so I picked everything. And then I moved down here to Houston, and I started with ILC Dover, and now I'm a senior systems engineer with ILC Dover.
So when people think of Houston, they think of Space City and they think of NASA, but obviously there's so many other amazing organizations that allow Houston to be the leaders in space and allow NASA to do what they do, and ILC Dover is a big part of that. So tell me about what you guys do and the history of your company and a little more about ILC Dover.
Sure. So the history of the company goes pretty far back, but as far as the space industry goes, we go all the way back to the Apollo era. So we made the spacesuits for Apollo. We made the spacesuits for Shuttle and for ISS. We've made landing airbags for Mars rovers. We've made landing airbags for different crew vehicles like the Boeing Starliner. We make inflatable habitats and are working with Sierra Space on the next generation inflatable habitats and a lot of the soft goods and different components there.
That's a lot of cool stuff. You said you studied engineering. When you were studying that at UT, did you envision this? I mean, when I think of engineering, maybe you work at a manufacturing company for vehicles, or you work at, an oil kind of company or things of that nature, making spacesuits. Is that something that was on your radar, or no, it's something that came later? How did that come into the picture?
So it was always going to be something in space. That was always what piqued my interest, and hence the astronomy minor. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and when I got out of school, I was willing to take whatever job, and lucked into this one, and I've loved spacesuits ever since.
What does an average day for you look like here?
There is none. There is no average day. It's kind of different every day. My primary role is with suit testing, and currently it depends on different phases of what programs we're working, but a lot of qualification testing, documentation and test reports, things like that. But as much as possible, I try to get hands-on with the suit. One of my favorite things about the job is the different types of testing. So trying to figure out what's needed, what information we need, what data we need, what subassembly or component needs to be tested, interpreting the requirements, and trying to tailor that to the specific test that we actually need. So kind of dissecting what actually needs to be, what knowledge needs to be gained from this specific test, and then making sure our test is set up to where we can capture that. So that could be cycling, it could be individual subcomponent, pull tests and different tensile strengths. So it can go from very scientific to very subjective tests and getting subject or crew feedback.
Absolutely. And obviously when you're studying engineering, there's a lot of math, a lot of numbers involved. How much of that do you use that on a day-to-day basis to, put all that testing you're doing into reports and things of that nature and share that with your team?
Sure, yeah, the math kind of, it really depends on the task again. I'd say it is an application of the intuition that we learned to know this is how I think it's going to perform. You make your hypothesis, and then you develop the test to try to see if you can prove that. As far as the hard math goes, I'm not doing as much of that, but there are some instances where I do have to apply the math to be able to provide my rationale for why this test result is sound.
Would you go to space if given the opportunity personally?
I would.
Yeah. Is that a dream of yours one day?
It's one of those aim for the stars and land on the clouds type of thing. So just I love what I do here and could do this for the rest of my life, and if it comes up where I could go to space someday too, that'd be great.
Hey, if you ever get an in, don't forget about me, because I want to go to space too. But you were at UT a couple years after me, but it's always amazing to see how you start this one place and then watching people do amazing things. So thanks for spending some time with us, and I'll continue to follow your career and see the amazing things you do.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you. So we are here with Destiny. So tell me what your job includes.
My job includes sewing things as well as pressurizing things, because I am a technician as well. So I do a lot of work with other technicians and other sewers.
Really cool. So you're like the person that actually puts the pieces of the suit together and sews them into place.
Yes, so we construct the suits. We do the full production we read the paperwork, we cut it out, we pin it together, and we sew it, put everything together.
Wow. How do you get your job?
I actually got my job from having an extensive background in sewing.
Okay.
So I've been sewing for like 22 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I also have my own business sewing.
Okay.
So I came in aerospace. It was a blessing.
And how long have you been here at ILC Dover?
I've been with ILC Dover a little over a year.
Okay.
I'll make 2 years in August.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
And are you liking it so far?
I love it.
So what do we have here in front of us?
Okay, in front of us we have a variety of fabrics. I just wanted to show that we do use some lightweight fabrics and we do use heavy fabrics.
Okay.
They all require different things when sewing. A different way of working the fabric through the machine or a different thread.
That's it's really cool that that's what you use, but it's also kind of mind-blowing, because you would think like, oh, we're talking about spacesuits. This might be like a big incubator room with like crazy massive machines, but that's like something that you potentially could have at home to sew with.
Yes, you can use these as well at home for like upholstery or heavy-duty sewing.
Yeah. And like on a day-to-day basis, when you're sewing, like for example, a sew suit, I imagine you don't do it in one go, and there's so many different layers. Like what we were seeing inside, like that external layer, is how long would something like that take? Days, weeks?
There's a variety of times, depending on how many of us are working on it at the time.
Yeah.
It could take a year, or it could take less than a year.
Yeah.
But it can take up to a year to just do the cover layer, which is the outside part of the suit.
Awesome. So now we get to do the fun hands-on part. So tell me what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, so this is the lower torso assembly of the suit, and this is the upper torso assembly. So first, Tara's gonna don the lower torso assembly, and then she'll don the upper torso, and then we'll close up the suit and then pressurize her.
These are basically the latest and greatest version of what we saw, like the astronauts walking on the moon on essentially years and years ago. Essentially, is that accurate or not really?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so there's been a ton of improvements, right? So we actually made ILC Dover made the Apollo suits. all the way back in the 60s and 70s. So we've been making the spacesuits. We make the current EMU that's on orbit now, and so since the 60s, we've made these suits for spacewalks. And so for everything that's been outside of a vehicle, ILC Dover's made the pressure garment system of the suit.
That's a pretty cool history.
Yeah, so this multiple water connector is connecting the supply and return of the cooling lines.
Okay.
So the water flows in, flows throughout the suit, and then flows back through and returns back to the cooling system itself.
Okay.
Some things that this suit is capable of as well as operating at elevated pressures, and operating at higher pressures allows you to reduce that total pre-breathe time as well. Okay. Since you're not going as low in the pressure column, you can start your sequences and different things at an elevated pressure and slowly reduce. And while this is currently being built to be an ISS suit, it can also have a plane change of the shoulders so that it's more for a planetary suit and is more set to where you can operate in front of you here. So it currently is set up similar to the current EMU suit, where the planes are, in the working envelope for the ISS that we've already developed all the procedures and processes for.
Awesome. So you can hear me right now? That was freaking awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm talking to someone in space right now. Awesome. So now let's talk more to these guys about how this suit is possible. So we got to interact with this suit and see one of your colleagues get in. That was really, really cool. But we'd like to learn a bit more about you. So Christabel, tell us about how you ended up at ILC Dover, where you went to college, your background. We want to know it all.
Yeah, sure thing. So I went to college at Northwestern University in the Chicago area. I majored in material science and engineering with minors in legal studies and French. Coming out of that, I had done some research that involved sending samples up to the ISS, and I knew I wanted to come back to the space industry, and ILC Dover just always stands out as a leader in that field. So I applied, got the job, and now I work here as a project engineer.
Did you realize that materials engineering was something that was going to lead you to working on spacesuits at ILC Dover, or it was more, I kind of have an interest in materials and this kind of happened?
Yeah, I actually had no idea. It was almost a full circle moment of, I grew up in Houston, ended up coming back to the space industry. I came into college wanting to do something a little bit more applied chemistry related, and that just ended up being exactly what material science was.
Yeah.
So it was more that I was taking the classes that interested me, and I happened to be friends with a girl that was in those classes from the get-go, and I was like, I want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
So transferred into that program.
Did you ever have an interest in space, like when you were a kid or at some point in college?
Yeah,
you mentioned you did research on the ISS.
I did. Almost funny enough, because it was so present, it almost faded a little bit into the background when I was growing up. But getting into college, looking back, it was like, look at this incredible opportunity that I lived right next to when I was in the area. So it came back to the forefront in college, but I didn't know right off the bat that it was a field I wanted to be in.
Makes sense. Obviously, working on spacesuits, there's so many different roles in that as well, right? The design, the testing and whatnot. What is your particular role?
So I work in project engineering, which is more project management. So I'm a little bit more of a translator between the technical team and the customer. So they give us projects or things that they want us to do or information they want us to provide. I get together with the technical team, we develop budgets, schedules, figure out what needs to be done, direct the project, and then present that information back to the customer in a way that makes sense to everybody so that everyone is clear and that they can make whatever decision they need to with the hardware moving forward.
Yeah. What's a part of your job you enjoy the most on a day-to-day basis?
Probably the community of people I get to work with, because everyone here is so interested and invested in what they do. There's not a lot of fields, I think, where you have so much passion for just the work itself. Of course, it's always fun to work with the astronauts. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But yeah, just such dedicated people all around, I think, is a very unique environment.
You're obviously, a woman in this space, and in STEM, we need more diversity, whether it's cultural diversity, gender diversity, and you're a role model to so many, young girls out there. What, a similar question to what I asked your colleague from, a lot of people may be intimidated by the pathway that you went down. They may think that, you're the 1% and they can't be that. Can you talk about, obviously I'm sure you had challenges along the way. Can you talk about how, those challenges are okay as well, and how, maybe if you don't look like everyone else in the room, that's okay as well?
Yeah, so that's a question that I think different people are going to answer very differently,
Yeah.
so I can only speak to my experience. Smart people ask stupid questions all the time, and they should, because that's a normal part of a collaborative environment. People should feel comfortable asking whatever they need to ask, however many times they need to ask, so that everybody is working together on the same page. So I would say it's important to remember, even if you're maybe uncomfortable or it's a new situation, the only way to build confidence is to keep doing it. So the most important thing is that you participate, because the more you do it, the more comfortable it gets.
Kind of moving on to space in general, I feel like we're at such an exciting time. You talked about growing up in Houston, and space is always part of the conversation, but I feel now we have so many different missions. We have private organizations leading missions, and it seems like we're kind of in this era of like anything is possible over the next 10 to 20 years. So what excites you most about your career, and obviously as someone who is in the industry?
Yeah, well, it's like you said, it's exciting just to kind of be on the frontier of it, because I don't think anyone really knows fully what direction things are going to spin off in once they really start moving, especially when you talk about things like the private sector. So it's exciting to be present. It's exciting to be with a company that has so much history that I feel like is really dedicated to making sure things are done safely and correctly, and has so much expertise in that area. It's a good place to be viewing the change from.
I have to ask you too, if given the opportunity, would you go to space?
Yes? Question mark? If somebody handed me a ticket, I don't know of anyone who could say no. It's not one of my personal aspirations, but it's an incredibly cool thing. So I don't think, given the opportunity, anyone would turn it down.
Well, I think what you're doing is amazing. You were we were talking, you graduated in 2020, and so
I did.
Only a few years ago, and you're doing such amazing things here at ILC Dover and getting to work on cool suits like this, and so I look forward to continuing to see what you do, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Wow, young people doing amazing work, and with a sewing machine, no less, right? I mean, I was with you. I thought that it would be a whole factory, a huge machine, but they're using kind of basic technology and just doing incredible work.
Yeah, just basic stuff. I previewed this episode to my mom, and she's like, "Oh, that looks like my machine." So there you go. And then I was just so inspired by both of their stories, right? They're only a few years out of college, and they're doing these amazing things. And so for young folks in high school, sometimes the journey seems super, super long, but hey, you might be just 4 years away from having a cool job like this.
Yeah. And so, I mean, to also identify in college that, oh, that's kind of, materials engineering, that might be a path I want to go on. That's really amazing. And then, so the suits go from there, and they're put through pretty rigorous testing. Will they go to the anti-gravity pool from there? That kind of thing?
Yeah, they do all types of testing with them. So that giant pool that we all see on our NASA tours, they go down there. They go to various rock pits to see how they would, interact on moon-like environments, Mars-like environments, and then a whole bunch of other testing. I was just really amazed at how well that person moved in the suit. They seemed really flexible. They used to be super rigid and whatnot, and they seem like they've really come a long way.
Moving around pretty easily.
Yeah.
Did you get to go in the suit?
I did not, but that's on my to-do list. I'm going to pester them until they let me get in one.
Yeah, I mean, because I was just looking at her wondering, is it heavy? Is it hard to move? And so report back when you find out that information.
Will do.
Yeah, that was really fascinating, really well done. And I mean, they're really just having to make this indestructible suit, and you did a really good job of explaining that.
Thank you. It was so much fun.